So there's something kind of big happening in the Android space that I feel like hasn't really gotten that much attention, and that is the FEX. I believe it's like an emulator or maybe like a compatibility layer. And what it is it's an additional compatibility layer built on top of Proton, which is the Valve sort of x86. So think PC gaming on Windows, compatibility layer to running PC games on Linux. And the biggest thing with FEX is it's meant for the ARM-based Steam frame that's going to be coming out this year, supposedly, and probably soonish. But I think the big thing that a lot of people are missing is that it can run on any Android device, basically, because most Android devices are just ARM devices. So what I have here is just a regular Samsung 24 Plus, I believe. And what I have on here is this free app, by the way, called GameNative. Now, it's kind of similar to GameHub, if you've heard of that, but it's basically GameHub without the weird account creation and, like, I think it's tied to a Chinese company. I don't know. But basically what I have here is I have my Steam account connected, and you can theoretically try to play any of your Steam games with the cloud saves and everything, DLC, just on your Android device. Now, the compatibility is kind of shoddy. I've tried with some apps and they didn't work, but most of the apps here that I haven't tried Animal Well, but all of these apps should theoretically be able to run on this device without issue. And to make it an even better experience, because the biggest problem with Android games is that playing a touchscreen game usually just isn't very good unless it's a touchscreen first game. What I have here is the GameSir something. It's some controller. If they were to pay me some money, I'd list this specific model. But basically what you can do is you can take your Android device and you can just pop it into this controller, and then you have effectively a full controller-based desktop-like experience. So, I mean, you can see there I have the Steam Deck and the Nintendo Switch, the first one. But the problem is the Steam Deck's really big, and the Nintendo Switch can't run that many games, and it's fairly power limited in terms of graphics card and CPU, which you could argue the same for this. But the difference is I can play my entire Steam library theoretically on this device, where the Switch can't really do that. And you can do that on the Steam Deck, but I mean, it's a much bigger device if I were to compare these two. Like, if you can kind of get a sense of scale for these two things. And the biggest difference is I can just, when I'm done with it, I can pop this off and I can shove this in my pocket, and then I can just throw this in a backpack, right? Where this, you can't, like if you have big pockets, you can do it, but realistically, that's not super possible. So let's get into the actual emulation here so I can show that this theoretically is something you could daily as long as your game was compatible. So let's start with what I would say the most interesting, which is Fallout New Vegas. Now, I did have to tweak some settings, and that's the biggest thing. All of this is very experimental and kind of shoddy with compatibility, but I'll show you one of the biggest things that work out in this with this setup is that this is a touchscreen, right? So on the Steam Deck, you can use the touchscreen, or realistically, you'll use these touchpads to move the mouse around, right? But since this is a touchscreen device, you can just use the mouse and it works, And then assuming your game has decent controller support, or if you can, set up some hotkeys or whatever, then you should theoretically be fine. Now, I won't say it'll be a perfect desktop with computer mouse setup, but I mean, you'll see that it works pretty well. And you can hide this stats if you want, and you can tap it to change it. But I'll leave it here for now, just as I'm playing, so you can kind of get a feel for what the performance is like. From the little testing that I did, you're going to get around 30 to 40 FPS. So I won't be playing a lot in Fallout here, but I'm just going to jump in and kind of show you what it looks like. So I will start a screen recording here for a little bit, and it might cause additional lag, I don't know. But you can see with Android screen recording going, I'm getting 50 FPS, 60 FPS, which I mean on the Steam Deck, sometimes you want to run games at 45 FPS just so it doesn't drain your battery, right? And with this controller, one nice thing that it has is, if I can take this charging cable here, it has not only a charging cable, but also a headphone jack. So I can also do pass-through charging with my phone here. And you can see it runs fine, right? Like, I'm not really running into any issues there. I'm sure there's probably graphical glitches and whatnot every now and then. I think there was something earlier you might have saw, like flash. And I will say, I think I'm running on pretty low settings because you can see these guys are about to pop in here. But I mean, just for the heck of it, let's start like a combat encounter. You can see it is lagging a little bit with all this action going on. Yeah. So now we're dropping down to like 20 FPS. But you got to remember, this is like a desktop grade game. It's a bit older, mind you, but it's running. Like, this is kind of insane. Like, this is something you would see on like a video like trying to scam you out of like Robux or whatever, you know, back in like 2016. But this is something that's actually like running, which is kind of insane. Remember, this is a PC game compiled for like, you know, x86 processors, desktop processors, running on a Samsung ARM device. Like, that's kind of mind-blowing. And again, this is all meant for what, you know, like a VR headset made from Valve, but I mean, it can run on any Android device, any, you know, like Chinese company making handheld ARM gaming devices. So I mean, it's really, really powerful. Like, what you're gonna be able to do with this. And again, it's not perfect. It requires a lot of tinkering and whatnot. But I mean, I think you can kind of see the vision. And I don't know if this is, I'd have to imagine this is somewhat realized by companies like Valve. Like, I'd imagine Steam Deck 2 will be an ARM-based device, because if it works, I mean, you're going to get massive like power savings and whatnot. And you might be able to even get some developers to build and compile their games for ARM to, you know, get even more power saving. I mean, when you saw the Apple M1 processors come out, people were blown away with the battery life, right? Well, imagine what you could get from both a power consumption, but also like a cooling aspect. Like, you get really, compact devices. Like, there's just, I think like the sky's the limit if we can get decent compatibility or emulation, whatever you'd call it, on ARM devices, you know? So I'm going to jump over to another game here just to kind of show you what that's like. Okay, here I am trying to boot into the Witness. Now you see this is an example of like a bug you might run into. I don't know if you can notice, but the cursor and where the cursor is showing and where it's actually highlighting is a little bit off. So like, this is an example of like something you might have to work around, but if I put it right there, I can hit that OK button. But yeah, so I'm booting into the Witness now. So this is an example of a game that it runs, but it is a little choppy. So I just wanted to kind of show that off. So I'm in an area that I think is probably one of the more graphically intense areas in this game. I haven't gotten super far into it. It's kind of hard, to be honest. But you can see it when I'm running around here, and this is with no game recording, right, or no screen recording right now, but I'm getting like around 30 FPS, 40 FPS, which I would, you know, with some of these FPS drops, I wouldn't consider it super playable. But in a game like The Witness, I mean, the actual gameplay part is just kind of like, you know, getting into these puzzles and moving things around, which I will admit is a little slow on a controller like this. And you could try to use the mouse, but I tried it earlier and it's a bit too sensitive and like kind of weird and jittery. But that technically you could play it with a controller, right? So what I'll do is I'll start the screen recording here. Okay, so this is with screen recording, so I think I'm getting a little bit more of an FPS drop, but as you can see, like it's playable. Like, I'm moving around, it is working, right? So I mean, if it can handle a game like this that, you know, admittedly is pretty graphically intensive, I mean, it's just really cool to be able to actually do this, you know? Now I want to show you a more practical example of a game that you could play on an Android device that might not actually be on it yet. Like, it was never ported to Android or mobile, whatever you'd call it. And that's Cuphead. Now, I haven't really played this game. I booted up like once. But like, it runs perfectly. Like, I didn't see any problems when I tested it on here. And honestly, I'll start the recording right off the bat because I don't think there's going to be any performance issues with this. So you can see I'm getting like perfect 60 FPS. It's only using like 30% of the GPU. And let's just jump into this level here. I'm probably going to do horrible, but that, you know, I'm just trying to show you that this is possible. Yeah, like perfect 60 FPS playing Cuphead. Now it's funny, I tried to look before I started this game on the through the compatibility layer or emulator. There was like some sort of game on the Play Store for this game, but it was not an official like Cuphead game. It was like the strategy guide for Cuphead and had like a lot of downloads, but it kind of looked more like a scam. I won't claim it's a scam in case it was just someone making like a guide for the game, but it was a perfect example of like, you know, someone trying to play the actual game on mobile, but it wasn't real. It was a scam. You know, you'd have to watch out for stuff like that. But now, like, this is something that might actually be, you know, a thing that people could daily, or, you know, instead of having to lug around a big old heavy Steam Deck. But yeah, I don't know. It's just cool to see. Now, the last game I want to jump on here is Portal 2, because, I mean, it's a game that looks great, and I'd imagine it will be like a first-party game for the Steam frame when it comes out. And it has, you know, they've updated most of the older Valve single-player games to be compatible with the Steam Deck, so they should have decent controller support. I'm sure you could play Half-Life on here with like the Steam, what is it called, like Steam OS main menu and all that, UI, I guess. Now, I do think there's some problems with cloud saves, because I'm pretty sure I've beaten Portal 2 like many, many times on my Steam account. And for some reason, all the levels aren't unlocked or whatever, so I'll just kind of rush through this first tutorial level to just kind of get to the actual interesting part. Okay, so we've gotten a little bit further in the story. Yeah, you can see I'm running Portal 2 at about 60 FPS. I will say there is like a lot of screen tearing with some of this like emulation or whatever that's going on. I don't know if it'll show up in the recording, but yeah, I'm only using like, what, 60% GPU? And I'm not 100% sure what like quality settings I'm running on, but this is like the full Portal 2 game, and I'm having like no problems running it. Like, there isn't really, I don't have really anything else to say. It's just super cool that this is something you can actually do. I remember back in the day seeing like, I think it was the first version of the NVIDIA Shield, where it was basically like a DS that you could run like, you know, PC games on. I was like, wow, that's so cool. But like, this is like better than that, you know what I mean? Like, it's something that's compact and you can just put in your pocket. And like I said, I think the biggest advantage is that it will work with your whatever compatible games are in your existing Steam library. So I mean, you know, instead of being limited to whatever's on the Play Store, you could have an entire backlog of like single player games that, you know, maybe are a little bit older, but, you know, are still probably tons of fun and can be thoroughly enjoyed. I mean, look, I'm even getting achievements. Like, this is crazy, right? So play a little bit more of this level just because I love Portal so much. But you can see it's even working. It's showing like the Xbox like button scheme, like, you know, press X to pick up box. Well, I don't know if it'll do it again. Yeah, I think it's done with it. But yeah, so as long as the game is compatible with the compatibility layer and it has controller support, I mean, theoretically you should be good to go. You know what I mean? And there might be some gyro controls. I haven't looked too into this compatibility app that I'm running. I'll try to put a link to all the things I'm using down in the description of this video. But yeah, I don't know, it's just really cool. Now, one little bonus thing I wanted to add, this isn't really related to all the compatibility layer stuff I was showing, but there's this Minecraft launcher called Amethyst that you can get on Android, and you can just run like any Minecraft version that you want, just like on your phone, like Java version, so full PC Java. So it's really cool. So yeah, you can see here, I'm running Alpha Minecraft. Like, this is the full thing. Like, if there was a server live, I could join the server. It's just really cool. And I mean, this is like keyboard controls that are being bound to hotkeys on a controller, so they're not great. And if I open the inventory, you can see it's like kind of janky, but again, it works, and it's just really cool. And I really hate modern Minecraft. So you can go back, and like if I go to, I believe it's let's see here. I will say this launcher has some weird quirks. Like if I want to actually exit, I have to force close. I don't know. There's probably an easier way to do this, but I don't know how to do it. You see, like, here's a different version. You can go in, you can edit. Like, you can select like release stuff, so like newer stuff, or like this is 1.7.10. You just hit play. And here's like a much newer version. I think we'll just create a new world just in case it breaks anything. And I can turn off the GUI as well. But yeah, look, it just works. And I don't know, that's just really cool. So I mean, it's not even just the emulation layer with FEX that I was talking about, but like this, having a controller opens up so many possibilities for mobile gaming. And I just like the idea that like when you're done with it, you can just, you know, close your game, pop it off the controller, and then it shrinks a little bit, and you just throw this in a backpack, and like you're good to go. So I don't know, it's just really cool. So that's all I wanted to talk about for today. So what do you think? Do you think there's a future of mobile gaming on Android, or do you think I'm kind of overblowing the potential here? So let me know what you think down in the comments, and thank you for watching.